And instrumental kids, as we all know, they say, I'm in band or orchestra because I don't want to sing, or I enjoy doing this. And singing is such a personal thing because it comes out of our bodies. And so people who aren't comfortable singing, I mean, I even have had chorus students in my time that got stuck in my class for some random reason. And I can tell that they're just completely not comfortable letting that noise come out of their bodies in a group setting. And so when I see it, I have a conversation with them and ask them, what it is. And they tell me, I don't want to sing. I don't like to sing, and that's really hard for me to hear.
Well, it's so ironic if you think about middle school kids and the kind of noises that they are okay with letting out of their bodies.
Oh yeah, especially in 7th grade boys class. It's powerful and special when you put those boys together. Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. You are listening to the Music Ed Mentor Podcast, where we teach music educators how to build, manage, and grow thriving school music programs and have long and happy careers. I am your host, Elisa Jansen-Jones, and you can follow my music education blog at professionalmusiceducator.com or find me on Facebook. Let's be friends. This last weekend marked the first of something new and innovative in music education, the International Music Education Summit. If you're a regular listener, you already knew this was coming, and maybe you joined us, and maybe you thought about joining us, and maybe you were just waiting to see how it all turned out before you decided if it was actually a thing or if it was just me talking a handful of my friends into watching commercials for my books. Okay, well, I have wonderful news for you. It did happen, and it was an unqualified success. Presenters and attendees alike just had a marvelous time. Those who attended learned a ton of very practical ideas and concepts, and the presenters gave away way more value than even I expected. Anywho, I don't want to go off about it too much, but I will tell you that the positive response has been loud and clear enough that we need to put it on again next year. So plan on joining us. Woohoo! Also, I wanted to let you know that if you missed it and have now decided that accessing that much good stuff in one spot sounds like a great way to spend your summer, I have wonderful news for you. We've made the archived sessions available for you to watch. To learn more, go to musicedsummit.org/2018 to learn more. Now, I know many of our listeners may still just be wrapping up the academic year, and our listeners in other parts of the world may still be in the thick of it, but for the next few episodes, we're going to be talking a lot about the most impactful things you can implement into your program to help you next year. We did that with Google Tools on our last episode, which, if you missed that with Katie Wardrobe, totally go back and listen to it. It's fabulous. Talking about how to use Google's suite of programs to help you be more efficient in your time and organization. And today we're talking about sight singing. We all know we should probably be taking time in rehearsal to do it, but most of us, especially the instrumental teachers, I know I'm one of them, we don't. We already feel like we need to cram as much as we can into every rehearsal. So why should we dedicate some of this valuable time to sight singing? What if we never sing in a performance at all? And if we do take the time, what advantages will it bring to our students? What is the best method for teaching sight singing so that it's not only relevant, but it's also really fun? To help me answer these questions, I've brought in the guru of sight singing, Dale Duncan. Better known as Mr. D, you can discover all the amazing resources he has for music teachers on his website, In the Middle with Mr. D. There's a link to it in the show notes for this episode. He's also the creator of S Cubed, a sight singing resource that will help you teach your students not just how to read music better and be better musicians, but how to make it fun doing so. So who better to try and convince us why we need to all, again, even instrumental teachers, need to implement sight singing into our lesson plans? But first, if you're looking for a tool that will give you a whole lot of repertoire that's perfect for implementing sight singing and sight reading, you should look at Smart Music. They have tons of built-in exercises and method books all ready for you to jump in and get started. Why not go to smartmusic.com and sign up for your account now and see what resources are there for you? Because you're resourceful like that. Without further ado, here is my interview with Mr. D.
Sure thing. I'm Dale Duncan, and I guess you wrote here, AKA Mr. D. So yes, that is me, and I have been teaching for 26 years in public schools. I started my career in North Carolina and went to New Jersey for 6 years, and then I've been in Atlanta since 2002, teaching middle school all of those years except for one. So that was a high school year, my final year in New Jersey. And when I came to Georgia, I wanted to be back in the middle school. And that's what I've done. I created S Cubed, sight singing program to share with teachers as well. I have a hobby on steroids, aerobic gymnastics, that I fly around the world judging the sport. So I've got a full and wonderful, busy life. And I appreciate you having me on.
Wait, back up.
Yeah.
Aerobic, what now?
Aerobic gymnastics.
For
Yeah.
reals.
For real. And I competed in the sport when I first started teaching. And I won the nationals a couple of years into teaching. And in fact, that was a big turning point for me in terms of staying and teaching or not, because I was on the fence those first 3 years, and I was competing at the same time, and then I won, and then I took a year off because we had a tour to do. It was going around fitness clubs and things around the country, and we were hosting the event, doing our routines that we had won with, and during that year, I really missed teaching. And so when I came back, I had a new dedication and wanted to do better. And I've stayed since. So yeah, I think that year off made a big difference for me.
Wow, that is really incredible. I love that you have that background as well, which might seem like a total contrast to teaching music, but when you think about it, probably coincides really nicely.
It does. And, I use, I'm really old now, but I'll do moves, like little simple moves for the kids from when I competed, when they do things in the classroom that are awesome. And that just makes them go on and find me on YouTube from back in the day. It's really fun to watch that happen.
That's awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
I totally want to look you up on YouTube now too.
Yeah. Yeah, just put Dale Duncan aerobic gymnastics and you'll find, it's all
Oh,
there.
that is so awesome. That is just really, really cool. So let's change gears and get into what we're supposed to be talking about today. Although I could probably go on about hobbies, and we should
Yes.
totally talk about physical fitness for the busy music teacher at some point, don't you think?
Keeps me sane. Absolutely.
Right. I mean, not just sane, but I totally go off on it in my book. Like, even if you can just do like 10 minutes of exercise a day, it's going to rev you up. And anyway,
Yes.
I'll hop down off of my little soapbox now
Yeah.
and let's talk sight singing.
Yeah.
To be honest, I have been in music almost my entire life. Like my very first musical performances were in community musicals. Like I remember doing The Music Man when I was like 7 or 8 years old, right?
Yes.
And my little brother was like the little piccolo player in the cute little kids band or whatever. And so like I have literally been performing the vast majority of my life, but I never learned sight singing. And I can't remember, like when I started playing instruments in the 6th grade, sight reading, sure, super important, right? But then when I got into college and they were like, okay, so part of your requirement is 4 semesters of sight singing. And I was like, are you serious? That's 2 straight years of sight singing. And it wasn't like, here, we're going to teach you how to do it. It's like, we're testing you every week.
Yeah. Same here.
Yeah. And it was kind of mind blowing because at first I was like, this is stupid. I mean, why do I need to learn this? I can already analyze any piece of music. I've already composed pieces of music. I'm a fantastic player. I know I'm a good teacher, so why do you think sight singing is that important?
Well, I compare it to teachers in K through 4, when they're teaching reading. I think we would never consider just reading a book to children K through 12, and they have to be able to read. Everyone needs to be able to read. And when singers come into my class, they're all beginners. And they mostly have no instrument background. The sight singing requirement in the state of Georgia is really high. And so I had to get it. I had to figure it out. Really, I had figured it out a little bit on the easy end of things. Like in North Carolina, we had quarter note, stepwise, unison, and I still struggled with that. And the children would get to measure two, and they would just fall apart in the classroom, and they would want to throw their sight singing books down. They would moan when I'd ask them to pull them out. So I was just on a mission to figure out how to make my classroom daily experience better, and to make them feel more successful. And it took a number of years. It took observing other teachers. They have to be able to pick up a piece of music. Like in my 8th grade class, they can pick, I can just give them a pitch, send them to a corner, altos go there, baritone go there, soprano go there, and they can figure it out and then come back and then they sing it. Like it's, there are some pieces, of course, they couldn't do that with, but the parts that they struggle with that maybe have rhythms they aren't familiar with, I mean, that I can help them with that until they get to high school and they go to the next level. There are so many tools required to take those dots and arcs and all the different symbols that we have off of that page and then sing them. And, I just had been on a mission to help my students be able to do that. And it's such a brain awakening for the children who are really true beginners, who have no instrument background. It's not the same to pick up a piece of music and sight sing it as it is to read it when you're touching a clarinet and you're touching with your fingers something that's tactile. Singing, you don't have that. And it's really so, I guess, unclear, really. And I wanted to make it clear. So I have broken it down into all of these steps for my kids. And I make sure that each tool that I'm teaching in that toolbox is clearly mastered. And I think on some level, it goes back to my gymnastics background because, we have a 10-level advancing, level 1s do this, level 2s do this, level 3s do this. You cannot become a level 4 until you've mastered these skills in level 3, and then you can demonstrate those in level 4. So it's like, that's how methodical we have to be when we're teaching this very difficult subject. And we have to use kinesthetic means, oral and visual, daily, 3 to 4 times a week, minimum 10, 15 minutes. And I think instrumentalists can benefit from doing it because I think of that as, I know that when I have a child coming in that plays an instrument, that they're going to transfer to sight singing a lot easier because of their background than my true beginners. And I like it when I have an instrumentalist. So I can only imagine that if an instrumentalist at a 7th grade flute player has been taught to also sing their part, even if their part, even if they don't have a beautiful voice, but if it's accurate in pitch and accurate in rhythm and in tune or whatever, that, they're going to benefit from that. So I went off on a long tirade, but that's,
No, it's perfect because it totally supports, what you just said totally reinforces what I was already like contemplating because, I'm a French horn player. Right?
Ooh,
I have a lot of notes that are very close together and the exact same key. I mean, it's one thing if you play clarinet, bless you if you do play clarinet, by the way.
I don't play anything but piano, and I'm not even that good at that.
Yeah, it's like spawn yourself 1,000 times, please. But anyway, on clarinet, you push down a finger, and as long as you don't have reed issues and you're covering all the right holes and your mouthpiece isn't too far in your mouth and you've conquered all those primary squeak opportunities, you push down the fingers, you're going to get the note. But French horn doesn't do that. You have to know where to put your face along with your finger. And so when I did embrace sight singing in college, it made me a better horn player. I mean, let's be honest, I was already pretty good, right? But but I was able to look through my part and be able to hear those intervals in my head, and it made my accuracy, I think, just go way up. So that's one thing. And then even today, when I was in clinicking another of the middle school bands in the area that I'm in, I had them singing. I had them singing their dynamic contrast changes. I had them singing the articulations the way that I wanted them because they've been using their mouth for that their entire lives. They haven't been using their mouth for instrument playing for more than 6 months now. So it is a really, I think, truly valuable thing, but we just tend to, neglect it. I mean, I don't even when I was in choir in high school, we didn't take time out to do sight singing. So
Yeah.
how do you emphasize that? How do you, make time for that and justify it when we
Well, I
have
think
so many other things that we probably need to be fixing?
yes, I think we have to reprioritize. That's what I did. I've always taught it actually, 10 to 15 minutes a day, just kind of, but I just didn't know what I was doing, and forever. And I just had to watch myself and the kids fail and then go home and reassess why is that happening? What are some of the issues? And I feel like that reassessment has helped me figure out those things. And I'm watching those children, confuse middle C going to an E with do and re because they can't see the ledger line, and how does that ledger line work? And almost all sight singing methods start with the key of C and then they go to F or G or whatever. And I had to just wipe all of that away because the kids, I had to help them be able to understand first what is on the staff. I had to just re-evaluate everything I've been taught about how to teach that subject, and base every tool and the process of teaching those tools, one step at a time, slowly stretching it out so that the goal is, of course, so that they go in the classroom and they can read and you can start working on dynamics. In seventh grade is when it all turns. Like in sixth grade, I just lay it all out. In seventh grade, I review a lot of it, and then they start like putting it all together in a way that translates the way you want, which is for them to be able to pick up a piece of music that's accessible to their age group and sing it. Dotted quarter eighth rhythms, skips as wide as an octave. They've got to be able to do that. And then in my eighth grade, I go up and teach chromatics, and they can interpret chromatics a cappella in ways that I could not do. I was not taught this. I was not taught to sight sing. When I went to college, I had the same situation you described with your sight singing. I watched at least 40% of our music class at University of North Carolina at Greensboro drop out of music school because of sight singing. And what I would do is I would go home and I would record them on the piano, all of the examples, because I couldn't sight sing. I kind of knew, because of my little limited piano background, I knew some things, but I couldn't sight sing. And we had to do it a cappella. He'd give us the first pitch, and this is how old I am. I would record them on my Walkman, and then I would put it on my head and walk around campus and listen to the examples until the test, over and over again. And when I would get into the room with the professor, he would point to the example and I would remember it and I would sing it. And so I knew, sorry for the dog, and I knew that this would be something that I had to figure out how to teach. For me, reading by the time I got in front of students was something that was so natural for me, even though I wasn't a great sight singer, but reading music and playing it on the piano helped me so much. I really didn't have a clue how to get it across to them. And they hadn't been speaking that language. They didn't understand so much. And I didn't know what they didn't understand, why it was confusing for them when they would get to B on a treble clef, and the stem would go up sometimes and down sometimes, and why when they would see that, they would call it something different. There's so many things that we don't train a true beginning singer in the group setting, and we expect them to know, and then they're just frustrated, and then they don't enjoy the process of reading, and they need to. And so that's been my mission through everything that I'm doing, is try to, I think we have to start it early. We have to start, I'm a big proponent of solfege. I think it is the right way. I know many people have success with numbers, but solfege allows us to use the hand signs, and the hand signs are the kinesthetic piece that puts it together for them to be able to be successful, going up and down and changing pitch and skipping and all the things that you have to do.
So your thing about the stems up, stems down, that is awesome. Because I start kids reading rhythms in kindergarten, of course, but they don't know that what they're doing is rhythms, because we start with butterflies and froggies and little sunshines, and then I use just squares on the floor of my classroom, and we mix them up, and each thing has its own sound, and And then when I start introducing notation, I put like each symbol on a piece of paper. And then comes the day when I flip them upside down,
Hmm.
right? And they're
Yep.
like, but Miss Jones,
Yep.
what is that? What is that right there? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Did you not recognize it? It's the exact same thing.
Yep.
It's just I could turn it this way and it would still be the same thing. And to
Yep.
see those little light bulbs go off in their heads is so
Yep.
cute.
It's great. But, I didn't realize for so long, and I think a lot of teachers who get frustrated teaching sight singing, haven't or are not able to, for whatever reason, realize what it is when you're teaching the true beginner, which is what most of us teach. I'm still waiting for Mozart to come in my room and help my kids sight read. I'm the little seventh grade tenor. I've been waiting, but I don't get him. I've never, in 26 years, had some really true, great reader. I have kids who sometimes I have 300 plus kids, and about 20 to 25 of them have had some piano or something, and a few of those are good enough to help. But it's not, when you're in big classes, everybody has to have the tools to be able to figure these things out. And in training the eye is so important. Like your example is wonderful, like that you're doing that. Training the ear as a part of it all. Like, I in the third week of school, I call lessons by the week, but I do a start ear training immediately, and I do crazy things to help them just learn, their brains awaken when I will sing on purpose using a bullseye on the board, something flat while I'm pointing to the center of the bullseye, slightly below it. It drives them crazy, and their brains are awakening. And I love watching, as I slide my finger up to the center and I go in tune, their eyes look happier. Everybody, and they're awakening. They're starting to learn to listen as they sing, which I think is a really important part of teaching sight singing. And the French horn players are always the best sight singers. Like everybody I
Yeah.
know. Yeah. Because the ear, you guys have the best ears. One of my very good friends, we sang in a chorus in Atlanta together. And the first time we sat next to each other, we had seen each other at the gym forever, but we didn't know each other. So we sat down, and we were sight reading. It was the first rehearsal. We had just joined this chorus, and he was really good, like at sight singing. I mean, he was nailing it to the wall. And I, by then my sight singing skills are really good at that time. And he felt the same about me, and we became friends. I'm like, why are you such a good sight singer? And he said, I'm a French horn player. And he told me all about his experiences. And I mean, he always sings in tune. It's awesome.
Well, we French horn players are people of many varied talents.
Yes, it's hard. I've never played one, but it sounds like it's really tough.
So I know that you've been really focused on middle school,
Yeah.
but how early do you think we could get kids sight singing? Because I do, for example, start mine on rhythm, and then we work on some solfege.
Hmm.
But I want to push them as hard as I can. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts and your experience about
Well,
age?
I think what you're doing is perfect. And you solfege and hand signs through games that you can, just engage them and expose them to the hand signs. So I think fourth grade and fifth grade, I think elementary teachers, I like it when my elementary school feeder programs use lessons 1 through 5 of S cubed, because they come in and those kids have, in those lessons, they're exposed to the hand signs in a fun way. They have ear training in lesson 3. They have a training of the eye lesson, and then they're reading notes off the page in stepwise, simple form, so that when they come to me, all a cappella, right, by the time they do that, and that's going to help. That always helps me when they follow lessons 1 through 5. And most elementary teachers don't see their kids every day. So, I mean, that can take them, almost the entire year to get through that. So yeah, I think you start in K through 3 with what you're doing, and then 4 or 5, take it to the next level. They can read off the page. It's just that not seeing them every day, I think, is the biggest challenge for you guys.
Yeah, I completely agree. I actually have two one third grade class that I see 2 days in a row and then not again for like 5 more days.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then I get them 2 days in a row. And that's one of the things I'm going to request to my schedule changes next year. I'm like, okay, I really love seeing them 2 days in a row, but they need some time to let things soak in and practice, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
don't see a whole lot of progression after one day. It's the same reason
Yeah.
I don't teach my private students 3 or 4 times a week because they don't have
Yes.
time to let it sink in and progress. So how do we make it fun for younger kids? Because let me walk you through how I was taught to sightseeing, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I guess mine's probably pretty old school, but how do we make it fun
Yeah.
for younger kids? Because they aren't going to have the patience or experience to be able to sing their A major scale to find the tonic note, you know?
Yeah. It has to feel seamless. We don't
Right.
start teaching language with, oh, this is in K or one or two, but this is an adverb. We don't, I mean, we have to make it engaging and fun. And so the way that I do that is through the first lesson that I do and that I do throughout my program is Forbidden Pattern. It's a game, it's a solfege game. And they're playing against me. And I started that on the very first day of school. Before I don't even say my name. Like as soon as they come in and everybody's settled, I just start so that the very first day they learn this game with me, and we gradually make it more complicated over time. And I try to distract them from the forbidden pattern, and they learn about my life because I'm trying to distract them, and and then I make it a competition between all the classes. And I put the scores up publicly, and so they're constantly looking. And the seventh grade boys are like, "Oh my God, the girls won today!" And we have to win. And it turns into this, awesome competitive piece that is fun. And as long as you keep it light, every day when you're doing it, it doesn't feel like they're receiving a shot from the doctor. It feels more like, and then of course, there's a period in that 10 to 15 minutes when they're going to be learning new things, and it does get a little bit more serious. But I don't go into any of the things that so many of the other methods were doing that were not working for me with my kids, and it wasn't fun. I didn't like teaching sight singing. It just felt like taking medicine. And it can't feel like that. It's got to be a process that is more enjoyable. And then once they get to a certain level, the joy comes out of making the music, and when they're sight singing and they sing something that's really difficult and they hear the beauty of it, that's when it turns, and they're also more mature by the time they get to that level, and they're able to enjoy the music making, but we have to give them those tools, and we have to do it in as fun and engaging and painless way as possible for both them and for ourselves. So we'll keep doing it.
So I can appreciate that sight singing helps them be familiar with the tune or the piece more quickly, which probably helps you get to those more advanced musicality pieces sooner in preparation for a performance. But what are some other like advanced music challenges that we might want to integrate sight singing to help us tackle?
Well, I'm not sure I understand exactly. I mean, I know I'll tell you what I do that is the turning point for my program. Every year in eighth grade, they are at a whole different level. They're in level 2 of the program that I created. They are able to pick up Carol of the Bells in October. We usually pick it up late September, early October. And they are able, first of all, they're excited to sing this song because they have heard it. It's a traditional piece at our school that we do each year. They've heard the eighth graders do it. And so that has ginned up some anticipation for them. But then they have to actually figure out those pitches. And there are a lot of chromatic pitches in it, and we have just learned in that point about chromatics. So we can apply all of this stuff that they have learned, including what they've learned so far in eighth grade. And I just love it when they go to the corner, they're already excited about the song. Everybody comes back and then they sing whatever section I've decided for them to master. And it's just the way it's supposed to be. That is the reason that we spend the time on the sight singing, so they can get to that point and feel that elation, that joy when they actually master this really difficult piece a cappella within 15 or 20 minutes of work. That's exactly the type of musical challenge that we want for them to be able to do, and it alleviates so much difficulty for us as teachers, because often as chorus teachers anyway, we're at the piano banging out notes or parts, and we don't want to be doing that. I honestly, I'm such a weak pianist that I just don't want to be back there banging out and messing up notes. And so I want them to have to figure it out on their own the best they can. I'll get behind the piano when it's way beyond their ability level. But
my college professors always dubbed the piano Fort Baldwin. And they were like, just don't get behind Fort Baldwin and try and teach your whole class from back there.
I know. And if you've got 84 kids in there, it's just death. I mean, but sometimes you have to. But that musical challenge of Carol of the Bells, I guess, is an example of what I think you're asking. And we do that more and more throughout the year. But I make it, especially eighth grade. I mean, when they're learning their adjudication music, most of the time they're able to just go in the corner and then come back. And that's the goal. And then you can start doing dynamics more quickly. You can start doing all kinds of nuances that you can't do if you don't have readers in front of you.
Right. I totally agree. Let's talk to somebody who, a metaphorical somebody, who's a high school band teacher.
Yeah.
And why they might want to integrate sight singing into their program. Is it going to help with intonation in addition to general reading ability, do you think? What are some of the varied benefits that might exist for instrumental teachers?
I'm not an expert on the brain. I'm just a teacher, a clown in a classroom for 26 years, but I can see, and I'm sure you can too, when a method that you're using to teach, whatever it is, awakens the brain of that child, like you described earlier in this conversation. The children who are in high school, those teenagers who aren't or who have never sung and who don't think they can sing and kind of resist that. If you can find that way to get them to do it and succeed, it's got to be engaging. I don't know what to tell you because I'm not an instrumental teacher. They're gonna know immediately that it helps them when they do it. But some people are just afraid to sing, and they, especially if they've not sung K through 8, and then you get in ninth grade and you get a high school band teacher who says you've got to sing this part. But it's we always get more bees with honey, and you've got to find ways to pull them into that singing. Maybe you have to warm them up with some echo singing or something so that they get used to singing. Make it a funny joke. I mean, sing minor thirds back and forth, describing something that's funny or silly, or I don't know. I mean,
why are you slouching?
Right, exactly. Or something that's going to engage the teenager, the 9th, 10th, 11th. That's our job as teachers, is to find those ways. It can't feel like medicine, whatever it is. And we've got to lead them over there very carefully. And that's what I've tried to do with my approach. And it helps them so much they don't realize what they're doing. And that's what you have to do. I wish I could be more specific, but hopefully it will help other teachers think in their classroom, what could I do? And the teacher that herself or himself has to be comfortable singing. And I don't think all instrumental teachers are. I mean, I know if I had to go in your classroom and teach French horn, I'd be a complete disaster. I'd have to figure it out, to go and practice and do something so I could figure out what they're dealing with. But I know it's hard to put singing in the instrumental classroom, but I think it's going to awaken their brains in ways that they won't awaken if they're just pushing buttons,
I think if we're truly educating them as whole musicians instead of, just somebody who can play an instrument, then singing has to be integral. It's the instrument that we were born with and that is with us at all times. So why not? And not only that, but a lot of modern band repertoire includes some singing. We just did this amazing piece with my community band last spring. Oh my gosh, almost a year ago now. that was called Hymn to the Sun, and it had like 12 bars of three-part singing in it. And it was surprising to me actually to see how few instrumentalists in that situation felt comfortable singing.
Yeah.
And
Singing.
we really
Yeah.
should be educating the whole child. So, all right, I'm
Absolutely.
bought in now. Let's say I'm the high school or middle school instrumental teacher, right? Orchestra
Yeah.
teacher this time because we got to share the love, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I've decided, okay, yes, I definitely want to start doing sight singing. What is the least amount of time I can dedicate to it? Because I have all these other things to do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What's the least amount of time I should dedicate to get the biggest benefit, do you think?
Oh gosh, an instrumental classroom, that's hard. I mean, I think
Any classroom. We can go any
10
classroom.
minutes, 7 to 10 minutes at the minimum. Like, and three to four times a week, just they've got to get comfortable singing. And instrumental kids, as we all know, they say, I'm in band or orchestra because I don't want to sing, or I enjoy doing this. And singing is such a personal thing because it comes out of our bodies. And so people who aren't comfortable singing, I mean, I even have had chorus students in my time that got stuck in my class for some random reason. And I can tell that they're just completely not comfortable letting that noise come out of their bodies in a group setting. And so when I see it, I have a conversation with them and ask them, what it is. And they tell me, I don't want to sing. I don't like to sing, and that's really hard for me to hear.
Well, it's so ironic if you think about middle school kids and the kind of noises that they are okay
Oh,
with
God.
letting out of their bodies.
Oh yeah, especially in seventh grade boys class. It's powerful and special when you put those boys together. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's
So,
amazing. So, when I design lesson plans for an instrumental class or a vocal class, whatever, one of the things I like to do in the warm up is kill two birds with one stone, right? So, I'm
yeah.
going to pull something from the literature we're working on that day to do in warm up so that when we get into the literature, they can be like, oh, we did this already in warm up. Do you do that with sight singing? Do you have them, integrate some of the things that they're going to experience repertoire wise?
Absolutely. In a warm up, I do, but my warm up is separate from my sight singing portion for my entire S Cubed program. And it's sort of, I know a lot of teachers have this idea, choral music teachers, that everything has to be completely integrated, which I did not find that was successful for my middle school beginners. Now, ultimately, that is the goal, right? Like, that's where we want to get. But we have to give them the tools that they need, one tool at a time. They have to master that tool, and then you move to the next tool so that you can ultimately be able to do exactly what you've described. And I do that in my warm up. My warm up is shorter than a traditional warm up, I think, because my sight singing portion, their voices are gently warming up during that time. So my warm up is my vocal warm up is probably 4 minutes long at the most, but it's very specific. Like, it's very specific if I'm teaching consonants or whatever I'm trying to do from the repertoire that they're going to have that day. If there's a rhythmic pattern or whatever, it's all very specific. I mean, I go bell to bell with my teaching. I'm very specific in that warm up to go to the choral literature when I need to make sure they connect the dots. And even in the very beginning stages, sixth grade and some of my seventh grade beginners, if we have covered something in our sight singing portion, which is in the rep, I certainly bring it back. I tie it in because that is what we have to do. We want it integrated in the end. But I want my students to have those tools, to master those tools. For example, when they're using hand signs, one of the tools I teach, of course, is pulsing so that they keep the rhythm steady, right, while they're doing the hand signs. That's a really big and difficult thing for a lot of children. So you have to give them time to master the pulsing, to master the lifting and lowering at the same time, and for taking all of those dots off the page accurately a cappella. That is a tool that takes time. And so, but once you've got it, you can integrate it all. And that's the goal. Like, I want my kids who are to go to high school and have all of so many things mastered so that their teacher who receives them can do more of the things, the theory things, of course, the music making, the things that are more like a teacher when they teach in fifth grade, this is an adverb. They can go into more of those specifics, the theoretical pieces that I don't always cover because, they get some of it, and a lot of them start asking questions, which is when it's perfect. You want them to ask questions about things, but I want them to master the language. I want them to master it, to be able to do it. And then when they get to high school, they start asking all the questions about the theory that perhaps I didn't cover. The way we have to get them to sing, we have to get them to sing it accurately. We have to develop their ears and their eyes and their ability to take them off the page and make it accurately sung.
So this is a question that I did not have on our little notes.
Yes.
But I got thinking, if you're in a pretty transitory school situation, let's say.
Let me get rid of that.
It's okay. I edit well for these reasons. Okay, let me start over with my question.
Yes.
All right. So let's say you have new students come into your school and join up in the choir, and they are in 8th grade, and they do not have the 2 years of sight singing experience. Do you spend a lot of time in remediation with them, or do you find that they catch up pretty quickly?
You know what? It is really hard for students to come into my 8th grade because my kids are so advanced with their sight reading. And so I get children. I had a child a couple of years ago from Afghanistan whose English was limited. And I have this happen frequently, but I'm just going to use him as an example. He wanted to be in chorus so badly. And so I always meet with the parent, I meet with the child, I tell them what they're going to face. And they're going to, fail some quizzes, and they're going to need to come to me to get tutoring. And I have a student group that also tutors as well to help me catch those children up the best that they can. But by the time my students get to 8th grade, any child who comes in is so behind. Like the language development is so far advanced that they often they can't keep up. And what ideally I need is an advanced 8th grade course and a beginning 8th grade course, but that does not work into my schedule. Now I'll let the kids in 8th grade, but they just don't catch up. I guess it's sort of like language. It's like if you grow up speaking Chinese and not English, and then you start when you're 13, it's not going to be the same as if you start when you're younger, So it's really difficult, but there is some level of positive peer pressure on those children. They listen, they know what's happening in the room. They don't really know, but they're taking in that information, and their brains are on fire. And the only thing that I require of those children who try to come into 8th grade is that they have the desire. And that's why I take the time to meet with the parents and with the kids, and I tell them what they're going to face. And I tell them what they're going to have to do to keep their grades high, because, it's really difficult for them to catch up. It's so advanced by then. They're more advanced in my 8th grade than I was my senior year in college in terms of what they're able to take off the page and sing a cappella. I couldn't have done it.
That sounds awesome. I'm super, super jelly. Well, first of all, I'm just super jelly that you get to do a middle school choir, because I'm actually in the middle of trying to negotiate to get one at my school, because we're K-8, but so far the only electives for middle school have been either band or art. And so being that I am the director of our choir for Mass, but it's usually just a mismatch of kids who can come during the 15 minutes I'm allowed a week to pull them out of class, right?
Yes.
So I'm like, we really just need to have like a choir that they can come and learn. Okay, so quick recap. Everybody should be teaching sight singing, whether Absolutely. You're in a choral setting or an instrumental setting or something that's both choral and instrumental, because it's our natural instrument and it's teaching them to be better musicians, and it's going to help your ensembles in a myriad of ways. And I would love it, by the way, if listeners got onto the podcast notes page on the Smart Music blog and listed like some of their sight singing tips too, or whether, really what the benefits that they've found if they do sight singing, just to kind of help reinforce that it is an important enough skill. And also we've covered the fact that French horn players are awesome.
Yes, they are.
And remediation is not a bad thing.
Yes.
And not that hard. And that it's just, if you truly want to teach them to be musicians, sight singing is something I really feel like you have to do.
Absolutely. It changes everything. It helps awaken the brain.
Yeah.
We watch it every day.
Well, I need you to give us a little, where can people get S cubed, and
Yeah.
what other programs do you think that it integrates well with? Because I am going to get smart music for my instrumental classroom next year.
Awesome.
Because there's a lot of great exercises on there that are, scales, arpeggios, stuff like that. So
Yes.
I think that is a really fantastic resource to support as well.
Yes.
So yeah,
Um,
where can we get it?
Yeah. Well, it's sold on Teachers Pay Teachers. If you Google the words middle school sight singing, you'll find lots of things that are not on Teachers Pay Teachers. I mean, if you buy the program, you're going to get everything, right? But like, if you don't have that resource right now, or if you're going to get it next year, you'll be connected to my YouTube channel, where you can see a lot of the teaching tips there, and just grab free information. And on my Facebook page, I often do like Facebook Lives with teachers, and I don't just talk about sight singing. I talk about classroom management, other things like that. Music in the Middle of Mr. D is the Facebook page. You'll be connected to Pinterest things. Like, I've just kind of shared everything that I can possibly think of, and try to get it out there for people, because not everybody's got budgets for buying stuff. And I want to help teachers. That's my number one thing. But whether it's classroom management or sight singing or teaching choral music, and helping them make nuanced music or whatever, I just want to help teachers survive in that classroom, because my first years were terrible. And that's a whole nother podcast.
Well, that's exactly why you were on today. You're fulfilling that mission by being on the Music Ed Mentor podcast. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and have a great weekend.
So you can see, if there's one tool you can use to improve your students' musicianship, it's sight singing. From being able to read notation effortlessly, to learning repertoire more quickly, to playing more in tune, sight singing is like the one tool that will do all of that. If you want to learn more from Dale, he's super active on Facebook, helping music teachers like you and me come up with even more ways to implement sight singing into your programs. He has a great YouTube channel in addition to his blog and Facebook Live sessions too. So check out the show notes and we'll link you over to them. Dale is also offering you a great deal on his S Cubed program if you want to give it a try. Get the first lesson free for the next 2 weeks. Just go to professionalmusiceducator.com/sight singing. That's all one word. professionalmusiceducator.com/sight singing. Or check out the show notes again for this episode on the Smart Music blog. While you're there, sign up for your Smart Music account and check out all the awesome repertoire resources you get when you get Smart Music. And I'd love to hear which things you plan on implementing in your classroom next year that maybe you haven't tried before, but you hope are going to make a huge difference. Shoot me an email or a Facebook message. My email address is info@professionalmusiceducator.com. Or again, find me on Facebook. I'd love to hear what your ideas are. Until next time, my friends, keep teaching on.